We hear the word pan-Africanism all the time. Well, we should, especially when it comes to our national hero, Marcus Garvey. But do we truly understand what it means? Well, what better time than when we count down to Jamaica 55? And this morning, lecturer at the UEMONA, Dr. Michael Barnett, is going to tell us some more about that. Good morning. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Yes, morning daily.
Let's start, Dr. Barnett, first with defining the term Pan-Africanism. When we say that, what do we mean?
Pan-Africanism means the global African collective. It's an all-encompassing term that means the African community. So we look at all people of African heritage, principally black people, as one, as a collective. So for instance, we in the West here still regard ourselves as Africans, but Africans born abroad. And those on the continent are continental Africans. So in the same way, we have the notion of a Jamaican diaspora. We have an African diaspora.
Yeah.
But the notion is that connectivity. So for instance, when I travel to the continent, and I've done it a few times, you know, my sense is that I'm connecting with my African brothers and sisters. And I have no problem calling myself an African, because I consider myself an African.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Jamaicans who have helped to really, really move this.
Yes.
We mentioned Marcus Garvey.
And yes, and he's a giant amongst the Pan-Africanists that have come out of Jamaica. But we also need to mention John Brown Russwurm.
Okay.
And he doesn't get a mention. Now, I want people to really look at John Brown Russwurm. Google him if you want. Born 1799 in Jamaica, Port Antonio. And he's probably the first Pan-Africanist, or one of the vanguard of Pan-Africanism, because Pan-Africanism starts before Garvey. It's just that Garvey puts it up to another level. But John Brown Russwurm has the distinction of traveling to Liberia and settling in Liberia because he leaves Jamaica actually at an early age of 8 and eventually finds himself in the US. He works on a paper called the Freedom Journal, which looks at, it's an abolitionist paper, so he was in the abolitionist movement. But he settles in Liberia, 1829, he actually immigrates, and he becomes the governor of Maryland in Africa.
What?
So it was like a state which was part of Liberia, so he has that distinction. He unfortunately didn't live that long, but he did a lot of ground. His thing was that being in the US and even being in Jamaica, he felt that he just didn't feel comfortable. He had this longing to go to Africa. So he's a pioneer in terms of Pan-Africanism. Then we have Marcus Garvey, but we mustn't leave out Jamaicans like J.A. Rogers. He rarely gets mentioned. J.A. Rogers, formidable, consummate traveler. He has a distinction of witnessing Haile Selassie's coronation firsthand, 1930, November 2nd, and travels across and around the US and so forth. So he's another Jamaican that I think encapsulates the spirit of Pan-Africanism.
I think the thing with Garvey was his ability to mobilize people and to get more people to appreciate the concept of Pan-Africanism. And that in itself helped to inspire a lot of people. The Nkrumahs and the so on.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, Marcus Garvey was a giant in terms of Pan-Africanism. Nobody has mobilized as many black people in their following as he had. I mean, he had millions were the membership of his UNIA. You know, 5 million, that's probably a conservative estimate. So until this time, no black leader has been able to achieve that mass following. Having
and
said
a lot
that,
of black leaders of our time, when you reference Obama, Malcolm X, Martin Luther, they all go back to Garvey as a reference point at some time and say he at some point motivated them or inspired them to look at the concept. So I think that's one of the great things.
Yeah, he's very inspirational, most definitely. But what we mustn't leave out the Rastafari movement.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking about the Jamaican tradition of Pan-Africanism. So Rastafari,
been sustained by Rastafari.
That's right.
Yes.
Because Rastafari are fundamentally Pan-Africanist. Because it's about embracing your African identity, celebrating that. You know, and who else but is doing that in Jamaica? and keeping a Pan-African spirit alive. So, in fact, on the continent, it's interesting. I was in Ghana not too long ago, and they take it for granted that most Jamaicans are Rastafari.
Yeah.
And I said, no, actually, that's not the case. But they have it in their mind. And then, Bob Marley, of course, and Peter Tosh was so powerful in terms of their influence on the continent of Africa, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and so forth, in terms of their struggles and their
and the ways they were able to voice the struggles of African people.
Absolutely.
Dudley Thompson would also have been someone that would have contributed to...
Very notable. He had the distinction of being at the 5th Pan-African Congress, 1945, in Manchester. And that was a pivotal Pan-African conference because it brought together many people, not only just W.E.B. Du Bois, but George Padmore. Kwame Nkrumah himself was there. Interesting enough, Amy Ashwood Garvey was there, quite prominent at that conference. So all these dominant Pan-Africanists came together, and it was the first time you had a continental African presence at a Pan-African conference. So this was the time when African liberation was just on the cusp of happening. And I think this is really what set things in motion. So Dudley Thompson, needless to say, as you know, was Kenyatta's lawyer in Kenya. And, he met Kenyatta in London, England, and was also with him at the Pan-African Congress Conference, 1945. So we have a very rich legacy of Pan-Africanism here in Jamaica. But my thing is, what are we doing to build on that today?
That's also my thing.
Yeah.
I find, and it's amazing, we started out very, very colonial, and then there was this strong Pan-African movement, and then now in 2017, we almost seem to be heading back to that colonial mindset. And I wonder, Dr. Barnett, as we head into Jamaica 55, what are some of the things that we really need to start doing and we see the problems happening in Jamaica, and what are the things we need to start doing to raise that kind of awareness among our young people? Well,
we each one teach one, and it starts with the self. But I think what I would like to see in my lifetime is Jamaicans, all Jamaicans, being content and happy with who they really are. When you look in the mirror, are you happy? Are you okay with your dark complexion? Are you okay with the texture of your hair? Are you okay with your African features?
Yes.
This is fundamentally what we have to deal with, because I am one of those people who argue that many of us are suffering from self-hate.
Absolutely.
We resent other black people because we resent ourselves. So without self-love, you can't truly love the rest of the community. So all of this crime, this violence, is a manifestation of self-hate.
Absolutely.
So if we can become to love ourselves and appreciate who we really are,
we'll
realize
ourselves better.
What our ancestors achieved. Because my other thing, and I hope I can emphasize this.
You have like a half a second, and I wanted you to mention the event you were having.
Okay, I said we are the black survivors. So slavery is not a badge of shame, it's a badge of honor. What I want to say about the event, we're celebrating Haile Selassie. His 125th anniversary birthday is coming up, 23rd of this month. And at the UE campus, Mona campus, we will have an exhibition called The Majesticness of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, running from Monday, July 24th, right through to August 11th. It'll be an exhibition exhibiting lots of memorabilia, magazines, which he's featured on, and a lot of some personal items as well, but really focusing on Haile Selassie as a Pan-Africanist, because a lot of people don't necessarily see him in this light. And I'm one of those people who argue that he was a Pan-Africanist, even in him coming to Jamaica and giving us this school, the Haile Selassie High School. It was a Pan-African sentiment, definitely.
Nice, always a pleasure to have you.
All right, thanks, Delia.
So we need to talk some more about it. Lecturer in the Department of Sociology, Psychology, and Social Work at the UMONA, Dr. Michael Barnett. Flying out for the summer, well, we have a few do's and don'ts for you after the break, so please stay with us.
Countdown to Jamaica 55 is brought to you by
National Cream Crackers. No better country, no better cracker.